Hi guys, let's talk about a topic which concerns a lot of students who go to Germany, and not just the students but also their parents. And the topic is about racism. So if you're brown skinned, black skinned, yellow skinned, or whatever that is, and if you end up in Germany, which is predominantly a white country or a less heterogenic country, will you face racism? And if you do, how do you tackle? So there are two types of racism really. One is perceived racism and other one is real racism. So sometimes what happens is that we just feel that it is racism, whereas it's just their normal behavior. So German society is a very rule based society, and sometimes those rules might come across as very strict to you, and you may think and that this is racism, but it's not. It could just be perceived racism. Uh, and then there is real racism, which is also existent, which means that somebody is putting you down because of your food habits, because of your skin color, and so on. So first step or to think about racism is to differentiate between perceived racism and real racism. Sometimes it's just in your head that you are being racially discriminated against, and it may not be true. So that's the first thing. And the second thing, just as an information, which a lot of Germans also do not know, is that Germany did not have state level rules or laws for anti-discrimination. Only in June 2020, state of Berlin passed an anti-discriminatory law for public authorities, which means that based on age, gender, skin color, and not knowing German language, no public authority can discriminate against you. I'm not sure about other states, but this law has been enacted in Berlin in June 2020. So that's a pretty positive move. There is an understanding now in most of the German bureaucracy and government that, or at least the state level governments, that there is a need to address racism in a more proactive, more in terms of a law, right? Now, so that's also, you need to keep in mind that you have a German government with you when it comes to racism, and it's changing. There are three kinds of racism. The first is bullying or racism by your fellow students or strangers. For example, somebody would call Chinese students, Schlitzaugen. Schlitzaugen is basically, small eyes, and or they would comment about food of Indians or how they smell, because the smell of Indian food obviously is a lot of spices and so on, and Indians usually do not comment on the smell of or bad smell of meat, which is there in a lot of restaurants, right? So either way, it's bad. I mean, you really don't want to make anybody feel bad about what they eat. So that's one, which is bullying by the students or strangers even. And then the second one is bullying at work, which is really a little bit more dangerous, and it can actually hamper your career opportunities going forward. And the third one is public authorities. So you go to an office and they just do not process your application, or you go to public authority and then they say that they are not responsible for you, whatever. I mean, there are many ways to discriminate softly as well. I think dealing with the government organizations is much easier because you have two very clear solutions there. You can write to the seniors. So if you're dealing with a public authority clerk, you can always ask that you have to write to his boss or her boss. So that is how you can solve the problem of racism in public authorities. And you could also use rules, because Germany is a very rule-based society. So you need to always point to the rules. So if you're getting racist, you're getting feeling that you're being discriminated against, you can always pull the card and say, this particular rule says this and this. I have done it multiple times. And you do it in writing. You don't do it verbally. You just use Google Translate. You write okay, this is the rule number ABC. could you please consider my application because of this and this? So even this is enough. So those are the three, different levels of racism. Students, strangers, number one. Number two, at work, really dangerous. Number three, public authorities. The easiest one to deal with is the public authorities. In general, when you are in any situation, you should think about it from the solution from three aspects. So now we are moving to the solution piece, right? So the first is you can respond immediately. So if somebody calls you Schlitzaugen, you could say, stimmt, aber viel besser als ihr dumm Nazi, meaning, yes, agreed, it's Schlitzaugen, but it's still better than some dumb Nazis, right? You don't need to always get to extreme responses quickly, but you can also respond strongly in strong words if somebody is using repeatedly words which you don't like. Or you could just say du Nazi Schwein, which just literally means Nazi pig. Germans from very small age are being taught, whether they are right or left, or it doesn't matter. I mean, from whatever political groups they belong to, they have been taught a lot about 1930s and 40s and 50s. Unlike in many other countries, like for example in China, you read history of last 2,000, 3,000 years. In India, you read history of last 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 years. In Germany, the focus is a lot on history between 1900 and 1950. The two world wars, Weimar Republic. So they learn a lot of what happened. They learn a lot about Germany from that lens. So they are always very. They'll go one step back if you call somebody du Nazi Schwein. So Nazi is the. I think you can search what Nazi means. It's a really bad word. So du Nazi Schwein. Schwein is pig. So if you say this to somebody, I would call it's an extreme response. So you need to do this extreme response if somebody is really hurting you, right? So if somebody is calling you like, you're Schlitzaugen or taking an extreme step on racism, you really need to respond, right? So that's one. So you can respond by words. The second one is you can just leave the situation if it's being dangerous, right? If somebody is throwing something at you, and then you just need to find a safe space for yourself and then just leave. I think in this particular case, if you're just walking, I know a few guys who were studying in the eastern part of Germany. They went grocery shopping, they came out, somebody was throwing some stuff with fire on them. So two of them started fighting with the Nazi guys, and the rest went inside the grocery store. So the right thing to do is to find a safe space and move back to a safe space, right? So everybody in this situation should just move into a grocery store where there are more people. So in general, Germans are good. They are very helpful, but you would find a lot of right-wingers now, especially because the amount of job opportunities have been on the decline for at least last 1 to 2 years. And the third is you can report. So there is a phone number, there is a federal agency, Anti-Discrimination Agency. I'll put the link below. And the number is 03018-555-1855. So you can call these guys and they're really helpful. I have called them once, and you can explain to them the whole situation and they'll find a solution for you. So this is one thing which you could do, which is reporting to this federal anti-discrimination authority. And the second thing you could do is, and if you have the money, you should do this. The legal insurance, Rechtschutz, costs like 15 euros or 18 euros a month, and it's super helpful. So this is something which I had for like 10 years, and I recommend everybody, if you have the money, if you have the possibility, you should buy this, because it will save you from a lot of trouble, not just with this topic of racism, but if for example your tax consultant is charging you a little higher, then you can You can just tell them that you have the legal insurance, and you get free legal advice, and you also get free lawyers through the Rechtsschutz or the legal insurance. So 3 ways to respond. The first is to respond just by words. Just call them du Schwarze, no, du Nazi Schwein. The second one is to leave. I think this is something which you should do in very dangerous situations. And the third one is to report. You could report it to the higher authorities within the government agency. You could report to the Anti-Discrimination Federal Authority. I have given you the phone number. Or you could just report to the police also. Usually the police is not that active, but you could do that. So those are just few of my thoughts on racism for students in Germany. It is a topic which you should not ignore before you leave. You should be aware of the topic, and just be nice to everybody. And there are a lot of nice Germans. There are a lot of nice Europeans in Germany. You will find them, and you need to develop your own community with them so that they come to your help when you need it. I hope you don't need the help, but if you do, then you should have somebody to call locally, not in India or Thailand or in China. So these are some of the thoughts on racism, guys. Just let me know any questions you have, and until the next video.